is third and goal at the Husky 3-yard line. Akili Smith will keep it. He's going to be now taken away. Now the pass is complete. Touchdown, Oregon. Jerry Jensen had a hand on Akili Smith, but he couldn't hang on.
The NFL is a league full of talent and success. Athletes at the highest level who convene and go against each other for our entertainment. However, even amongst the talented are a lot of guys who just couldn't compete at the same level as them. And in this video, I'm going to be going through some of the worst NFL players to ever play the game and how it went so wrong for them. Before we get started, here are some rules. Player had to have at least started a full season at some point or enough games to add up to a full season to even be considered one of the worst we've ever seen, as they need time to even show that they were that bad in the first place. The player can be any position, but quarterbacks are under the biggest spotlight, making them stand out a bit more. They can be from any era of football. And I'm sure I'll probably miss a few names on here, so if you feel like I've left someone out, be sure to let me know in the comments. With all that being said, thank you for clicking on this video, and I hope you enjoy. Number 5, running back Lawrence Phillips, St. Louis Rams. Phillips makes this list at number 5 for not only being a terrible NFL player, but for also being a criminal. He was a breakout running back at the University of Nebraska, where he rushed for 1,700 yards in the 1994 season and finishing top 10 in Heisman voting. With that season under his belt, he was drafted at number 6 overall by the St. Louis Rams in the 1996 NFL Draft. Phillips then proceeded to have one of the worst seasons for an NFL rookie we have ever seen, averaging barely 3 yards a carry and 600 yards despite playing in 15 games that season. Phillips was also dealing with some major legal trouble. He was dealt to the Miami Dolphins, where he was just as bad there, if not worse, averaging 2 yards a carry, and then was released by the Dolphins, where he tried to salvage what was left of his career 2 years later with the 49ers, but that ended up failing too, and he was officially out of the league. Phillips was later arrested on accounts of domestic violence, spousal abuse, false imprisonment, and vehicle theft. He was sentenced to 31 years in prison. In 2015, he was accused of murdering his cellmate and was facing a first-degree murder charge. He was looking at the death penalty, and before that could happen, he took his own life in his cell before that could go to trial. I'm not making this video to clown or make fun of the dead, but it's clear that Phillips was a very troubled individual who was also just not a very good football player. He makes this list because of how highly he was drafted versus the production he actually put forth, and it seemed that he just could not get out of his own way. He's also the only non-quarterback to make this list. Number 4, quarterback Akili Smith, Cincinnati Bengals. Coming in at number 4 on my list is Akili Smith. Smith was a star for 1 year at Oregon. He threw for 3,300 yards and 30 touchdowns in the 1998 season. This performance somehow got him drafted at 3rd overall by the Cincinnati Bengals. The team fell in love with his big arm and prototypical size at 6'3", 220 and figured he could be their next franchise quarterback. Boy, were they wrong. Akili Smith is now widely regarded as one of the biggest busts in NFL history, as in his rookie season, he was only able to muster up a total of 800 passing yards and 2 touchdowns to 6 interceptions before an injury took him out for the season. He then came back in the year 2000 and led the Bengals to a 2-9 record while throwing for 1,200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions once again. He also finished with a whopping 44.2% completion percentage in what is one of the all-time lows in NFL history. Smith would later go on to be benched that year and would play 2 more seasons in Cincinnati as a backup while also nursing injuries. He never saw much of the field and only started 2 more games in his entire career. He finished his NFL career in 2002 with a total of 1,200 yards, just 5 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. One of the all-time worst NFL players we have ever seen. Number 3, quarterback Rusty Lisch, St. Louis Cardinals and Chicago Bears. Now this is a name you probably haven't heard of, and I hadn't heard of him either until doing research for this video. Lisch actually backed up NFL legend and Hall of Famer Joe Montana at Notre Dame, and once Montana left for the NFL, Lisch was pretty awful there too. He threw for 12 touchdowns to 18 interceptions in his senior year and somehow still managed to get drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in the 4th round of the 1980 draft. Lisch was the polar opposite to his college teammate Joe Montana. While Montana was making his case for the greatest quarterback ever, Lisch was making his case for the worst quarterback ever. He didn't really play much in his first few seasons, rightfully so, but when he did get on the field, he threw for a total of 68 yards and 3 interceptions, and that was his total stats for 3 seasons. Then in 1983, the Cardinals asked him to actually play a game, and that seemed to terrify him even more as he threw 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions and only 66 yards. They eventually gave up on him, and the Bears signed him for whatever reason in 1984, and oh no, once again, Rusty Lisch found his way back out onto the field for one of the worst seasons ever. He threw for a total of 413 yards with the Bears in 7 games, along with 0 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Oh, and he also fumbled 5 times too. In total for his career, he played in 30 games while only starting 2. He threw for 547 yards, 1 touchdown to 17 total turnovers. Mike Ditka, who was the coach of the Bears, immediately regretted ever starting him and released him immediately. Lisch would never play another game in the NFL again. But hey, at least he didn't murder anyone. Number 2, quarterback Ryan Leaf, San Diego Chargers. Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf? With hindsight, we can understand how stupid that question is, but back in the 1998 NFL Draft, that was a serious question. Ryan Leaf was coming out of Washington State, where he threw for 33 touchdowns to just 10 interceptions in his senior season of 1997. He finished 3rd in Heisman voting that year and had NFL scouts raving about his arm talent. His counterpart was a quarterback I'm not so sure you guys have heard of in Tennessee's Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was also coming off of a stellar season in Tennessee where he went number 1 overall, and Leaf followed him behind at 2 overall. The Colts avoided the biggest mistake their franchise could have ever made and chose the correct quarterback, and it ended up with a Hall of Famer and a Super Bowl ring because of it. The Chargers, on the other hand, were not so lucky. After taking Leaf at number 2 overall, the future actually looked promising for about 11 minutes as he won his first 2 games. After those games, however, things fell off a cliff for Ryan Leaf. Leaf would go on to have one of the worst seasons ever as he threw only 2 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. Leaf could not read a defense to save his life and was so frustrated that he resorted to yelling at reporters in the locker room.
Incident in the locker room where he yelled at a cameraman who happened to be a club employee who was just trying to do his job. I wrote a very small note about it the next day that I just felt that Leaf was out of line.
Jay came in to interview him, and he went off.
Don't talk to me, all right? Knock it off!
Later that day, after he yelled at me, he read an apology on camera.
I misdirected my anger after the Kansas City game. I was extremely disappointed in my performance, and I let it show.
He read the piece of paper, and then he crumpled it up and threw it back into his locker.
So silence at 7 kind of...
Leaf had a lot of personal problems, whether it be with drugs or social issues. Nothing was clicking for him on the football field either. The next season, he threw 11 touchdowns to 18 interceptions and only won 1 game for the Chargers before he was released and signed by the Cowboys in 2001, where he was once again asked to start 3 games and lost all 3 of them. Leaf will go down as one of the biggest busts ever, but somehow not the biggest, as this next guy takes that honor. Number 1, quarterback JaMarcus Russell, Oakland Raiders. Yes, somehow there is a quarterback that outdid Ryan Leaf in suckage. That quarterback is no other than 2007 first overall pick JaMarcus Russell, widely considered to be the biggest draft bust of all time and the most overhyped prospect ever. Russell came off of a good season with the LSU Tigers in 2006 where he threw for 28 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions. The stats don't jump out at you, but his intangibles did. Russell was a 6'6", 265-pound quarterback with an absolute cannon of an arm. He was able to launch the ball 70 to 80 yards while just standing in place, and scouts were in love, especially Mel Kiper. Russell was taken first overall in the 2007 NFL Draft to no one's surprise by the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders thought they finally had their franchise guy and their team was saved. It was the exact opposite. Russell came in and immediately was just not good. He started in 1 game where he threw 4 interceptions before he was injured. The stats weren't the only problem though. Russell had a couple key moments in his career that began his fall off. The first one being the blank DVD incident. JaMarcus Russell was sent home with DVDs of tape to watch that had film and plays on them for him to study. The coaches suspected that he was skipping his assignments and slipped in a blank DVD and asked him about it the following morning. Russell replied with, "Oh coach, all the plays, they look good. Whatever you want to run, let's do it. I like them all." After getting that response, the coaches knew they were absolutely cooked. The next one being the weight incident. Russell reported to the Raiders training camp at 315 pounds. At quarterback, he was as big as his offensive line and was immediately put on a diet to help shed that weight. Overall, Russell just never really seemed to care about his role in the NFL all that much. He ate and lazied his way out of the NFL by the year 2009, where he finished his career with 18 touchdowns to 23 interceptions. He tried to make a comeback in 2013, but obviously that didn't work, and he is now considered the worst NFL player of all time. Thank you guys for watching.